right, good morning, everyone. My name is Kate Chance. I'm the Faith Liaison here in Montgomery County. I work within the Office of Community Partnerships. Our goal is to bridge county government and our diverse communities here within Montgomery County. We're here today in response to the rise of fear within our faith and diverse communities who are at risk of or are experiencing acts of hate based off of race, religion, ethnicity, gender identity, sexual orientation, disability, and other reasons here in Montgomery County. We want our diverse communities to know that we stand alongside them in the fight against hate and intimidation, not just through our words, but through our actions. I'd like to welcome you all here as we announce our Nonprofit Security Grant Awards, a rare program and potentially the only county grant of its kind in the country, with grants to organizations to help them deter hate crimes. This funding is available to any house of worship or nonprofit in the county who believe they're at risk of experiencing hate crimes. Today we will hear from faith and community leaders who are the recipients of these funds, as well as county elected officials and directors of programs who offer support to various hate crime prevention efforts. These funds will be used to do more than just protect those attending services. Many will use this funding to provide security for daycares, schools, senior support, community programming, and food distributions. I want to thank the county executive and county council who created this grant opportunity and continue to add funds to it in our budget. I also want to thank the various agencies who do the work behind the scenes, and especially thank Lisa Mantell of the Office of Emergency Management and Homeland Security for her work in organizing the grant reviewing process. So now I want to introduce our first speaker, County Executive Marc Elrich.
So I want to thank everybody for being here, the leaders of the faith community, everybody else who's interested in this, and I think we've got a pretty good group of folks here to talk about this today. This is not a happy occasion. I don't want anybody to be confused. I want to get up here and say I'm really happy to be doing this. The truth is, I wish we weren't doing this. You know, like, as somebody just going through a budget process and thinking of how many groups could have used $20,000 or $50,000 or $100,000, and knowing that because we have to keep people safe, we're doing this, but it takes money away from things that would make some of our communities stronger. So it's really imperative that we figure a way out of this at some point. There's got to be the ability to shift the temperature in the communities so that communities aren't victims of hate. This cannot be normal. It cannot be normalized. It cannot be accepted. We have to figure out how we move beyond this. As Kate said, you know, that we are increasing what we spent last year. There's $900,000 in the immediate budget. There's $300,000 in the supplemental. It's in the supplemental because by county procedure, we don't count our FEMA reimbursements in the budget until we actually have them in our hand. So we have a letter, but the letter is not a check. And so we've put a number of grants in the, not just grants, but other programs, you know, into a supplemental until the check comes in. And the odd thing is the check could come any day. But so I do not worry about whether or not the $300,000 will be there because we are going to be getting the money. The funding is going to be used to hire security personnel, augment current personnel, pay for security and assessment plans, and conduct security planning, and develop and execute a security drill and purchase new cameras for the facility. And the funding requests, we had 150 applications this year, and there was a 38% increase over the ones from the year before. The requests totaled more than $2.8 million, which of course significantly exceeds the $900,000 set in the budget. 136 projects did receive funding, and the majority of the grant recipients are planning to hire security staff for the funds, often off-duty MCPD police officers, and about half of them are planning to use these for security cameras. Hate crime statistics from Montgomery County and Maryland continue to be troubling. On the 2022 report, the annual bias report, which is the most recent numbers we have, MCPD recorded 157 bias incidents in the county in 2022, nearly a 10% increase over the previous year. That's an average of 13 bias incidents a month, and race and religion continue to be the primary base motivators here. Following that is sexual orientation and ethnicity. And 91% of the incidents were motivated by religious bias, and they were anti-Semitic. 91% of the incidents are anti-Semitic, and despite the fact that Jewish people make up 10% of our population. And 74% of the incidents motivated by racial bias were considered anti-black, and 12% were anti-Asian. And we can probably thank Donald Trump for the last one. Unfortunately, it's not likely that this kind of crime is going to end, and as a community, we have to remain committed to helping our organizations that are targets of hate crime. And this funding is designed to help them reduce the burden of safety and security. We were able to act really quickly after October 7th. We made decisions pretty much instantaneously that we were going to put the funding out in the community. And I'm glad we did that. I'm glad that we haven't had to deal with anything horrific here. But I think part of people knowing that we're putting this money out there and we're trying to secure facilities lets people know that we're taking this seriously and we're trying to keep people safe. And so I'm hoping that it has, to some extent, a deterrent effect on people in the community who wish to do ill. But whether it's a deterrent effect or just, we're fortunate not to have it, I'm glad we haven't experienced something terrible, but we're going to make sure that people have as much protection as they can so that they can feel safe and secure. No one should have to worry about what's going to happen to them, whether they're walking into a mosque, a synagogue, or a church, or whether they're walking down the street in a shawl or a yarmulke or any kind of ethnic dress that indicates that you're not a white American. So we need to do everything we can to make this a safer, better place. We're going to do our part to make sure that we provide resources that people need. And I will now turn this over to, are you going to turn it over to? I'll turn it over to Council President Andrew Friedson.
Thank you to the county executive. Thank you to the entire executive branch who has been a part of this effort. Thank you to all of our community partners in the faith and the nonprofit community. As the county executive said, we regret why we're here. We would prefer not to be here. We wish that there was no need for these funds. But I am proud to live in a place like Montgomery County. I am pleased to be able to partner with the county executive, with colleagues on the county council, with our faith and nonprofit sector, to be able to step up and to ensure that Montgomery County is keeping all of our residents safe. Our schools and our places of worship should be sanctuaries of peace, not fear and violence. And these funds help to make sure that everybody, regardless of their faith or their ethnicity, can worship, can attend school, can be who they are, can practice what they believe without the fear that too often comes with it. I'm very pleased to be here with two of my colleagues, Councilmember Gabe Albornoz and Councilmember Sidney Katz. 4 years ago, in the aftermath of the Tree of Life massacre, the two council members and I, Councilmember Albornoz and Councilmember Katz, and I, along with Chief Jones, put together a faith town hall with the Jewish Community Relations Council and a number of other faith-based organizations. We had not just Jewish faiths, but faiths across the gamut in Montgomery County who joined together to talk about the challenges the faith communities were facing at that time. And because of the conversation that we had there, and with strong partnership from the county executive with Chief Administrative Officer Rich Madalino, the executive included in the budget from that conversation $800,000 to start this program. Then COVID happened, and then there was a question of what we could fund. We had a same services budget, we had real challenges, and we made a decision that we weren't going to eliminate those funds. In fact, we were going to expand the eligibility of those funds. And so based on a recommendation that I had, colleagues agreed to expand the eligibility to ethnic groups, because we were seeing a huge increase in anti-Asian hatred in the early days of COVID, which unfortunately had seeped into our community based on rhetoric that was happening at the national level. And from that, we have this program that supports so many organizations, so many nonprofits, and is unique as a local government in the United States of America to step up and to provide these flexible funds to keep these organizations safe. We know that our nonprofit organizations, our faith partners, during COVID, were at the forefront of our response to a public health emergency. We know that these are critical places where our residents rely on a day-to-day basis, and it is our obligation, regardless of where somebody is, regardless of what type of institution it is our obligation in government, in local government especially, to keep our residents safe. And that's exactly what this effort does. Earlier this year, in October 7th, in the aftermath of October 7th, our county police department stepped up immediately and provided additional support to organizations that were feeling the palpable fear of what was happening in our community. And I appreciate the county executive moving quickly and working together with partners to make sure that we were shoring up the security needs in the immediate aftermath of those days. And I was proud at the county council to recommend and colleagues to unanimously support adding $311,700 so that the funds that the county executive put forward into the community in the immediate aftermath of October 7th wouldn't siphon off funds from the $900,000 that we had allocated in the budget. Those challenges that we appropriated these funds for last year didn't go away or weren't diminished as a result of October 7th, they only increased. And so we need to make sure that we were adding to the funding and certainly creating no harm. And it was not lost on me that on the day in the joint committee that I recommended to colleagues that we add those $311,700 additional dollars. That was the 75th anniversary of Kristallnacht, when Jewish businesses, synagogues, and homes were massacred in Nazi Germany in one of the darkest early days of the Holocaust. So when we talk about why these funds are important, it is not just symbolic, it is meaningful, it is direct. Organizations must know that their county government is going to do absolutely everything in our power to keep them safe. That's what we're doing with these grants. That's what we're doing with our efforts. That's what we're doing with not just the police department, but our interfaith efforts and our interfaith partners. And I just want to thank so much Luke and Lisa and the entire emergency management program, the police department, the Office of Human Rights, our interfaith community, all of our nonprofit partners. This is what makes Montgomery County what it is. This is how we live our values out loud that we talk about so often. And I'm just very pleased to be able to partner together with county government. Thank you to Ron Halber, who we'll hear from in a moment, who has really been a spearhead of this effort and has really driven us to continue with these funds. And thank you to all of our community partners who have been such a meaningful part of this effort to keep our communities safe.
Thank you so much, Council President Friedson. Next, we're going to hear from Luke Hodgson, the Director of the Office of Emergency Management and Homeland Security.
Thank you, Kate. Good morning. In the spring of 2023, the Montgomery County Council approved the executive's recommended budget that included $900,000 for this grant, as we mentioned. And that's a $100,000 increase from the year previous. So we have consistently increased this over the years, but so too has the demand for these funds. And I think, though the county executive mentioned it, it's worth mentioning again. This year we received 150 distinct applications for this funding. And the majority of these folks could articulate experiences that they've had that qualify as hate crimes. And this is in our community in Montgomery County. And this cannot be normalized. And these funds go to ensure that they will not be normalized, they will not be tolerated, and folks are empowered to protect themselves and each other and allow themselves to be themselves, to worship as they see fit, without the threat of any harm, violence, or intimidation. Of course, with that 38% increase that we experienced this year, we far outnumbered the amount of funds that we had available to us, which is always unfortunate. $2.8 million was requested, which is obviously significantly more than the $900,000. But of that, we were able to fund 136 projects. with the majority of those grant recipients moving to higher security, many times off-duty police officers, which is a great form of deterrence. And then other ones are beefing up their camera systems, their surveillance systems, so that not only can they detect these, but it also helps us to find those perpetrators after the fact. The grant funds range anywhere from, the individual awards range anywhere from $2,000 to $11,000, and each is based on needs and availability of the funding. And given the seriousness of the hate crimes that we've been experiencing as of late and the limited funding, the county prioritized this and took a very methodical approach to how we would provide this funding. We had particular concern for those who had clearly demonstrated serious hate crimes at their facilities or exerted against their members. Special consideration was also given to organizations that were at the highest risk for hate crime patterns that we see specifically in Montgomery County, those who have vulnerable populations, those with limited or no security measures in place as of now, and those that are in vulnerable locations within the county. As the county executive mentioned, there's an allowability clause in here, and that allows for these funds to be used for security staffing, security assessments, planning, training and exercise, and for new security cameras. Nearly half of the organizations this year, as I mentioned, a little over half of the organizations, reported direct incidents of hate. And that ranged from graffiti, vandalism, and arson, to intimidation and threats aimed at parishioners or members of their communities, online and phone threats, white supremacist materials distributed on their campuses, and individuals actually entering facilities and physically intimidating members of their communities. The effect of these hate crimes is felt in many ways, but in one way it's a direct threat on one of the core values of being an American, and that's our freedom of speech. Multiple facilities in their applications articulated that they had experienced vandalism, and that included destruction of signage that it was in support of the LGBTQI community, the Black Lives Matter movement, and their support for immigrants and refugees. And those same folks expressed fear that if they continued to show that support, if they continue to advocate for these groups, if they continue to exercise their right to free speech publicly, they were making themselves vulnerable to these sorts of attacks. And that is terrorism and intimidation at its best right there. So bias incidents in this county, just so you know, they're in no particular spot. I can tell you that it spanned anywhere from Bethesda to Burtonsville to Damascus and Wheaton and everywhere in between. We saw these bias incidents. And through this nonprofit security grants program, the county strives to ensure that hate has no home here. And these hate crimes, I think, is important that while we're seeing them proliferate, and it's not just here, it's obviously nationally and internationally we're seeing these proliferate, they do not represent the values of Montgomery County. And with the support of the county executive and the county council, we're putting into action measures at the ground level that will ensure that these things do not proliferate. I think I've mentioned many times before when I've talked to some of you guys that these crimes, these hate crimes, are notoriously underreported and vastly underreported. Some organizations estimate that less than 10% of hate crimes are reported. We strongly encourage that all residents and visitors here in Montgomery County that experience anything that they think may be a hate crime, that you immediately report that to the Montgomery County Police Department, whose determination and their passion for solving these crimes has led to a number of arrests. Before I close, I just want to thank some folks who were integral in making this happen, because this was a very large lift. I want to thank Lisa Mantell, who's here, Mara Parker, both in the Office of Emergency Management and Homeland Security, Raphael Murphy and Ali Hoy in the Office of Grants Management, Kate Chance, who we see, our County Faith Liaison, and the entire group of application reviewers who put months of work into meticulously reviewing and putting very careful thought into how these dollars would be spent to be most impactful in our community. And lastly, of course, thank you to the county executive and the county council for continuing to support this program and develop this critical resource that is so integral in making our community safer. The last thing I want to mention, and you're going to hear something from Montgomery County Police in just a moment about this, is that we offer a securing houses of worship training to our communities that can be requested, and we will gladly come out and provide it. It's provided by our office in conjunction with our faith liaison, Montgomery County Police, and Montgomery County Fire and Rescue. We look at ways to minimize the threats. We look at ways to recognize the threats, look at ways that you can immediately respond and report these threats so that not only do the threats of hate, but any action of active violence is immediately recognized and dealt with in a way that we minimize the impacts of that. Our next training is on April 3rd. It's going to take place in Bethesda. I would encourage everyone to attend, but know that we are willing to come out and we are all willing to offer that at your house of worship as well. So with that, I thank you all for being here and take care.
Thank you so much, Luke. If you cannot use the URL here, you can also email interfaith@montgomerycountymd.org in order to register. Next, we're going to hear from James Stowe, the Director of the Office of Human Rights.
Good morning. Good morning. Oh, thank you, Pastor. Appreciate that. Indeed, I am glad to be here, and I would just echo our county executive and his statement relative to not wanting to be here for this reason. I'm Jim Stowe, Director of the Office of Human Rights, has been announced, and I always use Dr. King as one of my guiding stars, and he said this: "He who passively accepts evil is as much involved in it as he who helped to perpetrate it. He who accepts evil without protesting against it is really cooperating with it." We are in the business of trying to figure out what we as a community can do when the actual act of hate happens in your community. And so I'm so pleased to be working with the Committee Against Hate Violence. A group has been set aside for the purpose of looking at these issues, hopefully in a preventive kind of way, training, outreach, education. But when incidents actually happen, as you've heard already, in great numbers, unfortunately, in our community, we're there to also be a reinforcement of the fact that in our community, the ideal, the core value is for everyone in our community to feel safe and to be a part of this community and never ever stand alone in the event these things happen. We stand in solidarity with those who've been victims of hate crimes in Montgomery County. And so our effort by way of the Partnership Fund is part of that product of the Committee Against Hate Violence, headed up by Lisa Taylor, our chair of that particular committee. What they're tasked with is not only doing the education and outreach, but also providing some relief, monetary relief, in the event these, incidents happen to you in your place of worship or your place of business or your home, for that matter. In those instances, if you have property damage, we are able to give, by way of a reimbursement, up to $2,000 per incident, once we have the affirmation that it's been, in fact, a hate crime itself. And if, for whatever reason, there's personal injury, we're also able to award up to $4,000 per incident. And if there's a repeated series of incidents, up to $8,000 per year. And so we hope those are funds that never, ever have to be tapped into. However, should they do occur, it is a way that the county says, through our county council and through the county executive, that you're not by yourself, folks. You're not by yourself. As already been stated by my colleague, if something happens to you in these incidents, call the police immediately. Let them be the first place for which you, in fact, issue your particular concern or your complaint. And don't be a bystander. You've heard it said over and over again. If you see something, my goodness, say something. Let someone know that there's something going on that either you don't like or something you don't understand or something that may be, in fact, be injury to someone. Speak up on their behalf if it's not you. And obviously the next place to call, obviously, is call our offices, the Office of Human Rights. So let us know this has happened, so then that we might, in fact, begin to impact your situation by, again, the Partnership Fund. That's what it's called, the Partnership Fund. And all we need from you is simply say that you've had an incident occur. We, again, validate it with our police department, and then we are able then to issue those funds to support you, to reimburse you for those damages and losses that you may have incurred. And so again, if we're not, again, protesting evil, we may very well be accused of cooperating with it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Director Stowe. Next, we're going to hear from Captain Jordan Satinsky. He's the Director of the Community Engagement Division for Montgomery County Police Department.
Thank you, Kate, and good morning, everyone. As the Director of the Community Engagement Division for the County Police Department, all of the hate and bias incidents that occur in our county come through this office. We're the clearinghouse for that. We take that, we work with Director Stowe and Director Hodgson on anything that comes in. And the idea is that the more we know, the more we can help. Now, I understand a lot of times these incidents may not be looked at as police matters because there's not a crime attached. Some people feel that way. Please know that since I've been here in this police department for over 2 decades, anytime someone calls, whether it's a crime or not, when it comes to a hate or bias incident, we've taken a report. The problem we always find is that people don't want to call. Like what Director Stowe said, if you see something, say something. Right? Call us. We will take the report. And if for some reason you get a response and an officer says or somebody says they're not going to do it, you can call me. And I'm going to give you my phone number in a few minutes so we can have that discussion if necessary. But we need that information. That information's used to target education, to assist people, to do things like what the county executive's doing here with these funds to show the need. Up until recently, not many agencies in this state have ever done this before and taken in bias incident. This new state law has actually made that a requirement, and many agencies are catching up. But we have been doing this for many, many years, and that's given us an idea of where these incidents are occurring. And as our county grows and people move from the southern end of the county up to the northern end of the county, we can see that trajectory of these incidents, and it's unfortunate. But this collaboration between the police department, Director Stowe's group, the Office of Emergency Management, and everyone else in this room really helps provide a great education and a great way for people to figure out, hey, how do I move forward? Okay. As a person of the Jewish faith, I have definitely been victimized myself in the past as a child and even now. And it's not a great feeling. And I can absolutely sympathize and empathize with anyone who's ever been through it, to no matter what degree. When it comes to this training, we will come anywhere in the county to help you. Just give us a call. That number, 240-773-6980. And we will come out, we will work and coordinate with the fire department and the community service officers in your respective district to put this training on. I mean, I'd love to see everybody there on Wednesday, but I get it if you can't do it. This training, since I've been part of this division, has yielded many positive results. A lot of things that houses of worship didn't think about in their plans, because let's be honest, houses of worship are not set up as security places, right? That's not what they're meant for. They're supposed to be safe places like our schools, like this building. And going in and saying, hey, maybe you should do this, maybe you should do that. You should have different identifications when people come in, know your parishioners, and call us if necessary, hire off-duty officers or security. Really opened a lot of eyes, even to the police department, because it wasn't an area we really ever looked at, right? It's a house of worship. Why would we need to be there? Unfortunately, the world's changed and we do. So we're here to help, and we ask you, please call us. Again, one more time, that number, 240-773-6980. And thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Captain Satinsky. Next, we're going to hear from community and faith leaders. The first we're going to hear from is Ron Halper, the Executive Director of the Jewish Community Relations Council.
Good morning, everyone. A few years ago, this grant program was envisioned as perhaps a temporary need to help provide resources, needed security dollars for a diverse array of nonprofits that were at risk of hate crimes and even terrorism. Hate crimes against different communities were surging, against Jews, against Muslims, African Americans, Latinos, Asian Americans, the LGBT community, and more. And the conditions that gave rise to these hate crimes have only intensified. And these include the breakdown of civil discourse, societal political polarization, the normalization of hate speech and the failure to condemn it, as the county executive alluded to, and the widespread use of social media to spread hate. Since October 7th, the deadliest day for the Jewish people since the Holocaust, anti-Semitic incidents against the Jewish community in this country, and Montgomery County has the same statistics, have gone up 400%, and that's on top of what was an already increasing trajectory from the previous 5 years. This includes hate speech, vandalism, and physical violence. I can tell you 49 Jewish students on campuses across the country have been physically attacked. The Muslim community has also seen an exponential increase in hate crimes against them, and this is unacceptable, and it must be confronted. Government's first responsibility is the protection of its citizens, and this program goes a long way to help provide the resources to meet that important societal goal. Montgomery County's nonprofit security grant program is in many ways visionary and exemplifies our best values to ensure the diverse community where all are embraced and cared for and feel safe so they can reach their highest potential. Existing federal and state grant programs are focused on providing funds for capital purchases. Don't get me, that's important. Bollards, to bulletproof windows, cameras. But Montgomery County's is exceptional. It's brilliantly conceived, it's flexible, and it's easy to access. Most important, it provides operating dollars. It encourages you to apply for operating dollars to hire off-duty police officers or security, which we know is the single greatest deterrent to committing a hate crime. This is probably the first such local level program in the United States, and it's certainly in the region, and we're working to duplicate this program in other jurisdictions. Prince George's County has offered a temporary one-time program that we're going to try and make permanent, and we're working with the mayor in D.C. to implement a similar program there. So let Montgomery County lead the way. Unfortunately, the security needs keep growing, the applications keep flowing, and requiring more research, which is why we thank the county executive for providing additional dollars this coming budget. This is exactly what he has done. We applaud him for his visionary leadership and his commitment to do what is necessary to protect our diverse communities. I also have to thank Council President Andrew Friedson for his enthusiastic commitment to this cause since the absolute beginning and the legislative leadership he has provided to make this program a reality. And I'd be remiss if I didn't mention Councilmember Albernaz and Sidney Katz, who, right after the Tree of Life incidents, convened the forum that Council President Friedson referred to. Got a couple hundred people there, and it was really a diverse crowd. And one after another, people went up there saying, I just don't feel safe. And it was very simple. And it was kind of shocking that in today's era, that where we think we live in a county which obviously constantly talks about valuing diversity, embracing everybody, that everybody felt such fear. So my hope and my prayer is that one day we don't need this program anymore, and we can take the now $1.2 million and use it to take care and be able to give that money to nonprofits to take care of their missions instead of having to protect those people in those institutions that are doing so. Thank you to everybody who made this program a reality.
Thank you so much, Ron. And now we're going to hear from Reverend Walter Sadler. He's the pastor of Southern Bethany Baptist Church.
Amen. I want to thank the council and the executive for allowing this to happen. In 1963, in Birmingham, Alabama, the 16th Street Baptist Church was bombed, and 4 innocent black American girls lost their lives. I had the opportunity to visit in Charleston, South Carolina, there with my wife, and we visit the Mother Emanuel Church, there where the pastor and his congregants lost their lives at Bible study. 60 years later, we are still dealing with racism and violence in our churches and the community. Unfortunately, when I leave my office sometime late at night, we don't have cameras, so I go to the windows in the sanctuary to look out, the front door to look out and make sure that I'm safe leaving my church at night because of racism and violence. During the pandemic, our bus got vandalized and our Cadillac convertible was taken away from us. During the peak of us giving food out in the community, serving 300 people a week, but yet the pain I felt when my trustees came to me and said that our bus was vandalized. During the pandemic, the Black Lives Movement was in action. Some of my colleagues' churches in Washington, D.C., and you heard on the news that their signs was taken down when the church was vandalized. Some of my colleagues asked me, and some of the church members asked if they put a Black Lives Matter sign up in front of our church because of fear. Me as the leader, I said no, because we're afraid that we will be a target because of racism. And so I thank the council, I thank the community here in Montgomery County for allowing us to feel some urge of being safe. We used to give a community day every year in September in conjunction with Burtonville Day and invite people from the community to come up. Or after the pandemic, they asked if we have it. I said, no, we couldn't have it because some of the congregation we feel unsafe in our own worship homes because of violence and because we don't have the security that we really need to keep us safe. And so we need this security grant. I applaud you for doing it, to keep us safe, to keep the kids safe, to keep the community safe, and keep hope alive, that we can feel that we have a sense of worship. I grew up in the Baptist church, and never at a time did my father lock the door of the churches. But now, on Sunday mornings, our service at 10 a.m., at 10:30, we locking the doors. And we making sure that everyone get to their cars safely because you said something about Dr. King. I want to piggyback on something Dr. King said because of our angry and sick brothers in this society. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Pastor. Next, we're going to hear from Reverend Dana Edwards, the Minister of Faith Formation at Cedar Lane Unitarian Universalist Congregation.
Good morning, everyone. I'm the Reverend Dana Edwards, as she said, and my pronouns are she and her. And I'm here from the Cedar Lane Unitarian Universalist Congregation in Bethesda, Maryland. We are a liberal religious community committed to building beloved community as Dr. King envisioned. We proclaim our welcoming of people of color, members of the LGBTQIA+ community, immigrants, and other marginalized communities. We publicly proclaim our welcoming stance via banners, signs, flags. We have a Black Lives Matter sign. We have a Progress Pride flag. We proclaim our welcoming stance through our publications and social media, through our staff and leadership speaking engagements and participation in coalitions, task force, and other commissions, and events we host at our facility. Cedar Lane has had our banners and signs vandalized. In November of 2020, during the pandemic, our Black Lives Matter flag was destroyed. In September of 2022, our Progress Pride flag was stolen, and our Stop Asian Hate yard sign was intentionally damaged, along with a sign supporting Ukraine. In November 2022, our Progress Pride flag was stolen, and the tall metal flagpole was actually cut. And other Unitarian Universalist congregations in the area have experienced similar acts of hate-based vandalism. And Cedar Lane is known nationally for being a physical sanctuary church, for hosting an undocumented immigrant and her family for 2 years. For this, Cedar Lane received high levels of media coverage, both national, regional, and local, from news outlets at the time, which can actually still be found by doing a simple internet search. And we have been and will always continue to be a vocal supporter of immigrants' rights. And given the ongoing deep hatred harbored by many against undocumented persons, there is a significant additional risk that the church could be attacked. Cedar Lane also makes our facilities available to other faith-based groups that are at high risk for hate-based attacks. This includes 2 Jewish congregations who host high holiday celebrations at Cedar Lane, and workshops, meetings, and bat and bar mitzvahs. For these reasons and many more, the security of our building and the people who access our building is of great importance to us. We are grateful for the worship security grant that we received from the county, and especially the county council and county executive. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. We'll use these funds to upgrade our facilities, upgrade our security cameras in our newly renovated areas of our building, which we invite you all to come see. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Reverend. And next, we're going to hear from Saqib Ashraf, the Vice President of the Board of Directors for the Muslim Community Center.
Thank you, Kate. Good morning. Assalamu alaikum. Ramadan Mubarak. It is not lost upon me that we're here today in the holiest month of Islam for Muslims like myself, here and around the world. The Muslim Community Center is in Silver Spring, Maryland, right off of New Hampshire Avenue, and is one of the largest mosques in the region, with our participants, community members, congregants increasing, every single year. With that increase every single year, we see an increased need to keep our people safe. We have our youth programs, we have our weekend school, we have the medical clinic, which we've had open for almost 20 years, I think maybe 21 years now actually, that we have open to all people, regardless of faith, race, or creed. So that is something that we're very proud of, and the security that we can offer on our campus helps to allow us to keep that running. Grants like this from the county, I think County Executive, you said it great. This isn't a happy occasion that we're here. It's a reality that we have to be here, and we're here because we have to be here. But it's good that with your leadership, with the county council's leadership, with the various offices here in the police department, we are in a position to where we can be leaders in the nation pushing forward. The Muslim Community Center is going to be using this grant in addition to hiring off-duty Montgomery County police officers for our Friday prayers, our Ramadan celebrations. We're also going to be enhancing our security plan that needs to be, revisited year over year and every so often. So, I know there's a couple of speakers after me, so I'll just close with, special thanks to the county executive, the council, the Office of Management and Homeland Security, the Office of Human Rights, and all the rest of the offices within the county, especially the police department, one of our valued partners, for supporting us. And, we're looking forward to the continued partnership to make not just the Muslim community in Montgomery County feel safe, but the rest of the faith-based and minority-based communities feel safe as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And next, we're going to hear from Ann Kiosinda, who is a board member with Wat Thai, Washington, D.C.
Thank you, Kate. Good morning. Sawasdee ka. I'm a representative from Wat Thai, Washington, D.C. Wat in Thai language means temple. So we are a Buddhist temple on Malay Hill Road. So why I was writing the application for the security grant, unfortunately, our temple got intruded. So during the broad daylight like this, unfortunately, the monk cannot be here because it's the mealtime, and the thief know that. So they came in. Luckily, the monk went back to the building, and the intruders left. But they damaged our security camera system. So it's very fortunate that we received the grant from you guys. So when the intruder came in, the whole community, it's got a ripple effect. We feel unsafe. How can you be a place of worship, a temple, which is supposed to be a safe and peaceful place? You cannot do anything like that. You have to lock the door, you have to watch who's coming in and out. That should not be the case, and we all feel that. So I would like to say thank you to County Executive Marc Elrich, council members, and everyone involved in this grant for accepting the reality we are facing, the hate crimes and the discrimination. And thank you, Office of Faith Liaison, for letting us know of the grant opportunity. The policemen, District 4, who came to the temple, provide assessment, security assessment, and recommendation. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Anne. So our last speaker is Lena Dean Oppenheim. She's the Director of Finance and Operations for Ivy Mount School.
Good morning. As Kate said, I am the Director of Finance and Operations for the Ivy Mount organizations. For more than 6 decades, Ivy Mount, a nonprofit organization located here in Montgomery County, has provided educational and therapeutic services to neurodivergent students and their families. Partnering with the public school system in our community, Ivy Mount School, the Maddox School, Ivy Mount Outreach Programs, and our early childhood clinic provide those specialized education and programs. Feeling safe at school is foundational to a student's positive learning experience. With the support of grants such as this Montgomery County Non-Public Security Grant, Ivy Mount is able to monitor our environment, enforce our current security procedures and protocols, and make important improvements as necessary. Through this grant, we will continue to upgrade our security systems. These improvements to our infrastructure are an important component for our security program. We're all susceptible, including Ivy Mount, to the unfortunate realities of today, including violence, vandalism, hate crimes, and hate bias. By upgrading the camera system, we can better monitor the grounds and the exterior doors that could be vulnerable to intruders via the handicapped accessibility mechanisms that allow the doors to remain open longer. For any student, particularly for unique learners and students with disabilities, feeling safe, cared for, and empowered is vital to their ability to learn and live their best lives. With the support of the county executive and the county council, Ivy Mount will continue to enhance our emergency preparedness and security programs to ensure that our students, our staff, and our community feel safe at the school. On behalf of our board of directors, our executive director, Susan Holt, our staff, and especially our students and families, we wish to express our appreciation to the county executive and the county council for this grant. Thank you.
Thank you so much to our elected officials, county employees, and community advocates for being here today. Now we're going to open up to the press for any questions they may have. If the county executive can join me up here, And if you want to interview any of the other speakers besides county officials, wait until afterwards, and then you can ask them if that's all right. But any questions from the press?
Sorry, I have a few. Stephanie with Fox 5. Can I ask, first off, and if this was already answered before, I apologize, how are people able to see who the grants are going to ensure that it is fair and doled out?
Does Luke want to?
The answer from our staff is it's available on the website.
Thank you. And then can you speak a little more to what was noted before? It was said by the captain that as you see people move from the southern part to the northern part of the county, that you're seeing a trajectory. Can you just break down what exactly?
If I was interpreting, I would just say as the population grows, the crimes grow with them, not that people migrated from the north to the south to commit these things. But yes, it was not meant to be that. I'm sure that's not what you meant. He says it's not what he meant.
Thank you. Also, some questions on, looking for off-duty and Montgomery County police officers. This county is dealing with a shortage of officers as well. How are you able to ensure that that's going to be able to be provided for those looking for that protection?
Because they're off duty. And so this is something after people have done their shifts, they volunteer to do because it's just it's second income for them. So it's not cutting into any of our shifts or our ability to put people on the street every day. And we've been doing this for years and years and years. You can go to Best Buy today and probably see, an off-duty police officer there.
I understand that, but with overtime the way it is because of the lack of officers and numbers that you have, you're ensuring the community there are enough officers to even want to volunteer because they're not tired, they don't have family obligations and things going on.
I hear you. I think the department feels they're managing the overtime. We would not sacrifice our ability to put people on the street. But as long as we can get them on the street, even though it's through overtime, the officers are free to take secondary employment.
And then can I also ask, some of the community concerns we've been hearing is that a lot of the hate and bias that we're seeing in the county is also growing within Montgomery County public schools. County executive, you yourself were a part of removing school resource officers from the school buildings themselves. We're talking about bringing police to help protect places of worship. Are you separately considering maybe increasing the number of community resource officers to ensure or look at what's happening around them?
So just to be clear, we didn't remove them. There are schools in which the police officers are actually in the school. There are schools where the principal has not chosen to do that. If the principal wants the officer in the school rather than outside the school, the officer is available. The idea was they had to be nearby in the general area and able to respond. So that's a decision that was left to the school system individually with the principals. So I didn't put that wrinkle in there. That's something they put in there.
Can you answer though, is separately,
Yeah.
the concern in the school system, are you looking at maybe trying to increase community resource officers because of what we're seeing coming from within the schools when it comes to hate and bias?
Look, all the schools have security staff, and you cannot rely on police officers. If you have to rely on police officers, the only adults in a room who can get kids to do what you should do, you're in serious trouble. We've got resource officers in the schools. We also have security staff. Every high school has multiple people on security staff. They probably need to be better trained. They need to have you're getting the detail of how the rules around what people can do and not, but I think they need to relook at some of the roles that these officers are allowed to play. I mean, it's hard to tell somebody you can't intervene and not have the ability to do that and rely on a police officer as the only person who can intervene if there's a fight or something like that.
Last question for me, at least for now. This is one of the smartest and wealthiest counties in the state of Maryland, not the country. The fact that this is what we have to do to address hate bias and things, how do you think about that? How do you answer that?
I mean, this is a hard discussion. Since I'm known to be blunt and brutally honest about things. Look, anti-Semitism has like a 2,000-year history of hostility from Christian churches, and particularly in earlier years, and I don't mean like a whole long time ago, I mean up to my lifetime, where there was a virulent anti-Jewish sentiment that came out of Christian religious organizations. I grew up with people who thought, Jews had horns. Seriously. I've talked to other people who had that experience. So that's one group of people. This country taught and fostered racism for 400 years. Seriously, if you look at the dehumanization of black people, in order to enslave people in a society that was based on human rights, Thomas Jefferson and all those guys, the only way to do that was to define them as not human. Because otherwise you had this terrible intellectual quandary of how do you deny human rights to somebody who's human? So defining them as not human is an easy way out. That has poisoned American race relations forever. You just don't suddenly pass a piece of legislation and everybody says, oh, all my bigoted ideas were totally wrong and I'm just going to change myself. That's not what happens. So we've got a number of hatreds that have been set in place for a very long time, and we have a very hard time dealing with it. There are societies that have undergone kind of racial transformations like we have done, that actually had reconciliation meetings. There were commissions. They honestly talk about what happened in the past. We can't even talk about, honestly, what happened in our past. So these things persist because, A, we started them, and B, we've been very tepid in terms of how we respond to them. And I personally think the schools need to be willing to take a much more aggressive role in teaching people about other people's religions and beliefs and the validity of their existence, because you cannot be sure that they're getting that in their home or other environments. I think the schools need to teach a broader acceptance and understanding that we're all human beings, we all got the same DNA, and that we all have the same rights. And if you can't say that because you're afraid that's political, that's a sad commentary. When anything talking about the humanity of human beings is a political statement, that's messed up.
Thank you. I have one more question, but let's
Any other questions?
God, she pops right back.
Okay, well, you did mention that it's unfortunate that this money that is going to something very important is also going to have to come from somewhere. Can you talk specifically about where the money's coming from?
It comes out of this large $6 billion budget, half of which is going to schools. But even within that, we sit and make choices. After you fund basic operations, you're trying to figure out what are the other things you want to do. So we're expanding medical clinics. We're putting money into additional emergency response teams. But just like they said you could have funded more money for institutional protections, we could have funded more money for some of the programs we have. We fund feeding programs. We know it probably doesn't completely meet the need. I could probably honestly say that about almost everything that we try to do. Housing. We put a lot of money into housing. I'm making another recommendation for a record amount of money in housing. But I had to cut $35 million from what I thought I was going to recommend when the state said that revenues from 2022 that we were just getting were lower than we anticipated. So we make these tough choices all the time. It's not like everything else is fully funded, and it would have been fully funded but for this. But it's what we're doing here is, just that money obviously could have landed someplace else.